In Walmart's Hoonuville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit purina.com/purple to learn more.
Hello and welcome to Haway The Podcast. It's Martin here, and you join us for our weekly Q&A pod, where we tackle all of the questions you've sent in to us to answer. And as you might expect after our defeat to Fulham on Saturday, we've got the modern equivalent of a mailbox that's bursting at the seams to pick through. Unfortunately, I've got a couple of sharp minds and razor-sharp wit to help me do just that. So first of all, we'll say hello to Andrew Smithson. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, Martin. Thank you for that. That's very, very complimentary. And I think both me and my guest looked at each other there and thought, he's talking about you, isn't he?
Well, I did read on the internet, Andrew, that you have a very soothing voice and people like listening to you, and, you know, it's a big compliment, mate.
That is a very big compliment. So, yeah, maybe after defeat at the weekend, a couple of people need soothing and are going to tune into this one.
Indeed, and we've also got our transfer guru, Ant Watson, with us. Hello, Ant.
Hello, everyone. I don't have a soothing voice apparently, so there we are.
No, me neither. I've never had that through.
No.
We'll just bask in the comfort that Andrew obviously reflects with his beautiful dulcet tones. We have got a ton of questions to get stuck into today, so we will dive straight in. And the first one revolves around the team selection for Fulham. Obviously, after a defeat, things get scrutinised a bit more than they ever would do if we'd won that game or even picked up a point. And the team selection and the tactics as well have obviously raised a few questions. So, Roker Rodeo at Sand Dancing on X said it was a frustrating performance at times, but I feel being set up so defensively hinders any potential attacking threat. Why do you think Regis kept the same team in formation as Arsenal at home for Fulham away? Now, and we talked about this. Me and Gav talked to Tom Weiss about this in the podcast that we did on Sunday morning. And Tom's view on this was that, from the Chelsea game, you understood going with that formation, that back five, made sense because you're going away at Stamford Bridge and you've got to contain Chelsea. And it kind of also made sense keeping it for the Everton at home game because we had Arsenal coming up, and the chop and change in between those games might have been a bit much. But when you look at the fixtures that we've got coming up, obviously we had Fulham on Saturday, we've got Man City, we've got Liverpool, or vice versa, and then we've got Newcastle. There's a very strong argument there we might kind of chop and change formation, or we should chop and change formation going into those games. So why do you think we went with a back five? Were you surprised on Saturday when the team got announced that we'd stuck with that formation, or were you kind of expecting it?
I wasn't surprised because I think it has kind of worked. And, obviously the Chelsea and Arsenal games got a point against them, but at the start of Everton, obviously we weren't playing very well. I think it's one of them things where when you looked at it on paper, you think, nah, that's not too bad. But then the thing that I was a little bit disappointed about was against Manchester United when he knew it didn't work. He changed it quite quickly, didn't he? Obviously, I think that it was in the first half where we took a Dringer off, and I'll get wrong for saying that, sorry, a Dingra. We took him off and brought Dan Ballard on. But then on Saturday, when you kind of knew it wasn't working, probably at half time, he didn't change it then. I thought, like, what Regis has done this season has been excellent, that he's seen a problem and dealt with it quite quickly. Whereas on Saturday, you knew it weren't working. At half time, get it changed, get someone on, give us a little bit of oomph, I think, and then see what we get in the second half, because just the second half just seemed a bit more of the same, didn't it? That we were just sitting back, absorbing the pressure. It looked quite comfortable, don't get us wrong, but we were always we were never looking as if we were any threat at all going forward. I felt really sorry for Wilson actually on Saturday, because he just had no service whatsoever. And the problem is, you're only a mistake or a bad decision away from conceding the goal, aren't you? And we got both on Saturday, where it was a bad decision leading up to the goal because it was never a free kick. But the goal is shocking defending all round. You can pin blame on anyone really, but I mean, it's awful defending. And the fact that we'd had a couple of wake up calls earlier on in that second half, obviously when they brought, I think it was Emile Smith-Rowe, that brought him on, didn't they? And the lad who set up the second goal, Chuck Brazy, they brought him on. And it just made them look.
Goal? We didn't concede a second goal.
Sorry, the first goal. Sorry, sorry, my bad.
I thought I'd nodded off and missed something there.
I think I meant the second half. I think I meant the second half. But when he made those changes, Fulham immediately looked more of a threat, didn't they? Look more attacking. Smith-Rowe was getting in behind, wasn't he, quite often? And we never changed it. We just stuck at it, and I think that was probably where I looked at the manager and thought, let's get some players on. But then he didn't really change the formation. He just made like for like subs, which it just didn't work. But it happens, He's a young manager. He's still learning. It's a young team still learning this, that, and the other. It wasn't good enough on Saturday. I'm sure he'll address it. I'm sure on Saturday coming up, it'll be different. It'll change. I think he'll go back to a 4 on Saturday against Bournemouth. But it is what it is.
Hold that thought, because that's it's a subject of a few questions that we'll come on to later on in the pod. But Andrew, Ant mentioned there he was a little bit surprised that we didn't try to mix things up a little bit, either during the first half, as we've done away at Manchester United earlier in the season, or even at half time. And again, when Gav and I were talking to Tom White, he said, Regis Le Bris has earned enough trust. He trusts him with his credit card and his PIN number. So there's absolutely no criticism of Le Bris as a manager. But, again, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get things right all the time. Some things that you'll try will come off, other things that you'll try won't come off. But I think that the lack of change did stand out, because of the way that the second half kind of went, and it was pretty much in line with what we'd seen in the first half, which hadn't been particularly good. And Matt B on X at Red and White Forever, and Elliot at Elliot, lots of different numbers, have sent in a couple of questions about that. So Matt says, how did it take so long for Le Bris to work out that 5 gave us no options at all through the middle and was getting us exposed every time we gave the ball away? Why was he reluctant to change when he's previously been very quick to do so? And Elliot says, would it not have made sense to bring Alderete on, put Mukiele at right back at half-time, maybe move Trouder into midfield and play a 4-3-3 for the second 45? But it is all ifs and buts at the end of the day. So there's lots of things that he could have done. And I guess if if Talby had put that ball through to Lefebvre with 5 minutes left when it was 0-0, and Lefebvre sticks in the top corner and we win 1-0, nobody's talking about this, other. But why do you think there was a bit of a reluctance? Or did you think there was a bit of a reluctance to change things?
There was, as the game went on. I certainly think ahead of the game at kickoff, I can fully appreciate why he didn't want to make changes. We have spoken in the past about how Le Bris is fine making a change, even if it potentially means somebody might be feeling a bit as if their nose is being put out of joint. He will take brave decisions. I think after the Arsenal performance, we'd played so well, though, and we'd followed the instructions, that if you then start dropping players, it actually causes an issue in terms of morale. Some players are going to say, well, hang on, there is no way I should be getting dropped. So I can fully understand why we stuck with the lineup during the game. I was shocked the more the match went on that we didn't see changes, but it was 0-0 for a long time. He's probably thinking, well, this is... Yeah, Fulham had a few chances, but we weren't completely hemmed into our own box. We did have a few sights on goal. He'll not risk changes in a game if he thinks it's actually going to take us from a drawing position to a losing position. He was able to make changes against Manchester United because we were already behind. There's nothing to lose then. Against Fulham, he maybe respected the point and thought that was going to be good enough and didn't want to upset the apple cart. I personally might have made a couple of changes, but he's probably looking at it from a different point of view. Also, when we did make changes, I don't know if they made any difference anyway. Maybe he's looking at the bench and not thinking he had the right people available to do what he wanted to do.
I guess it was the formation that could have changed, like, rather than the personnel potentially, isn't it? And the interesting thing with what you said, I don't disagree with anything that you've said there. The interesting thing, when you look at that, is, yes, it was 0-0, but really Fulham could have been 2 goals up, 3 goals up in the first half, and we couldn't have complained if it had been 2-0 up because we'd given them the chances. So should the manager's decisions about team changes and team selection and subs be determined by how good the opposition are in front of goal rather than actually the concession of chances? And I think that's the interesting thing, because you see against Man U, we made changes because we were 2-0 down. But you could argue that really that first half performance against Fulham wasn't that different, because Fulham could have been 2-0 up, and again, we couldn't have complained if it had been.
No, but also had it been the other way around, and as you say, had we nicked a goal, the whole complex of that performance changes, and then suddenly that's a defensive masterclass, and it's your classic away team smash and grab. We don't know what the game plan was. maybe what he was seeing, I know it sounds daft, but if they've worked on a certain system and a certain plan throughout the game, if that is then being fulfilled in front of him, we're panicking as fans watching it. Maybe he was comfortable with it all and thought, this is how I want the game to go. We'll never know the full thinking behind a manager, but yeah, as I said, he's got plenty of trust in him for us to let him do what he needs to do. I personally would be more than happy for him to have my bank card, because there's absolutely nought in the account anyway, so he can't do any damage. He'll not be strengthening the squad in January with the funds I've got available, sadly.
No, that's same goes for me, and I presume Ant would chuck himself
fairly
in the same
confident.
boat
That's
as well.
fairly true with me as well.
But look, as Elliot says at the end of his questions, all ifs and buts at the end of the day, and if the game had gone one way or the other, different decisions get made. I think after the match, he indicated that he certainly wasn't happy at all with the performance, particularly in the first half. And it could well have been one of those things where at halftime he's going, you know what, you lot have been absolutely shit. Go out there and prove that you're right, because I could take any of you off.
Yeah,
and that could have been the situation, couldn't it? I think the other thing which comes into the reason he chose 5 at the back again, potentially, was because they've obviously worked on that between Chelsea, Everton and Arsenal, which was only in the space of, 2 weeks, really, on the training field, 2.5 weeks to work on it. Then all of the players have gone off on an international break, so he actually hasn't had them back on the field to then do something different for Fulham. They'll have all got back on Thursday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, and to then go, right, we're going to do something different from what we've been doing for the past month. You might have thought that was too big a risk, but it's interesting with the Man U game. Obviously, it draws natural comparisons because that was a game that we kind of lost most recently in kind of similar circumstances with a performance. But Jack Asprey, at Jack Asprey on X, asks if there was something else that's kind of similar between the two games. He said, do you think this Fulham loss was similar to the Man U loss as both teams' managers were under pressure and their players stepped up for their gaffers. Could it be our aim was to upset and frustrate a struggling team, and they didn't fall for that trap? Now, there is similarity there because there was an awful lot of stuff going on at Fulham in the lead up to the game. Marco Silva had been offered a new contract, hadn't signed. I think there's been stuff going on behind the scenes with him wanting transfer funds and all that sort of stuff. When we went to Old Trafford, Amorim was under pressure, and the feeling was that if we'd beaten him that day, he could well have been sacked. So we're going into both these games with the teams potentially wanting to prove something for their managers. Do you think that was a factor that we maybe didn't consider too greatly before the game, Ant?
To be honest, it doesn't really trouble us which opposition managers under threat or not, to be honest. I think I agree with the Man United one, because I think had that been a win for us, they would have dispensed with Amorim. I think that would have definitely happened. I think the problem they've got with Fulham is Fulham want Marco Silva to stay, and I think it's more Marco Silva wants to see what problems that's going to arise this season and what he's going to be getting in transfers in January, or he's just, because he's out of contract at the end of the season, he's just going to walk, isn't he? So I think it's a different kind of pressure there don't think he's under pressure because of their performances, because the away form's been turgid, don't get us wrong, but at home they have actually been all right. So they're probably in a little bit of a false position, to be honest. But I think I get that. I get that the similarities are the same. But we went to Burnley and didn't play well. And, Scott Parker wasn't really under that much pressure, was he? No. He is now, don't get us wrong. But the problem I've got with both of them is, in fact, it's probably all three of the defeats, is it's just this kind of, right, we'll concede, but then we won't change. And then he did it against Man U and looked better. Burnley, when we were 1-0 down, things weren't exactly working. He kept playing on. And then, obviously, Saturday was the big one. And I think Andrew hit the nail on the head quite quickly early on. But also, in the second half, we could have been 1-0 up within the first 30 seconds, couldn't we, when Enzo cut in and hit it wide. And I think maybe he saw it there. And to be fair, the second half, we were better. We did have a lot of the ball second half up until when they made their changes. And that's probably where I was a little bit more disappointed, when as soon as they made their changes, they looked better and we made ours and didn't. But we didn't change anything. It was just personnel, but the shape didn't change. So all the pencils come up. He's going to make a point here. No, he's a pencil.
You're right, because I was reflecting on this after Gavin and I spoke to Tom White on Sunday. And it's because we made our changes when we were actually having our best spell of the game.
Yes.
I thought for that first 15 minutes of the second half, we were actually played the best that we played throughout the whole 90 minutes, as it turned out. And we brought Talby on and Broby on to try to take advantage of that. And the two of them didn't make an impact at all. So you could kind of defend Le Bris to a large extent by saying when he made those changes at that point in the game, he'd given them a kick up the arse, presumably at half-time. We come out, have a good solid 15, 20 minutes. We actually looked a better team. We had possession, could have created a few chances. Lefebvre went very close at the start of the second half. He made a couple of changes to try to get some fresh legs on into those attacking positions, because the team was actually functioning pretty well at that point, and those two subs didn't actually work out as well as he thought they could do. So it's all fine margins. Again, if Talby spots Lefebvre in bloody mile of space, then it's a different thing.
The worry I've got a little bit regarding Talby is, like, he came on obviously on the left and looked very, very good. Obviously got that assist against Wolves with the own goal, got the goal against Chelsea, and then when he's come on since, hasn't played on the left. Like, he come on Saturday, played on the right. He come on against he didn't come on again, did he? Because he brought
Arsenal. Did he come on against
Arsenal? And he played on the right. They come on the right then. So sorry, the dog's coughing if you can hear something in the background. So that's a little bit of a worry. But it's like he could have easily just went right, put Lefebvre in the 10, change the formation over, and then Talby up the left. But it's all ifs and buts. It's all ifs and buts. And as I said before, we were 4 minutes away from what would have been a very credible draw. So
that's right.
And it was, like I say, a referee mistake, which I'm sure you went through it on Sunday. He was absolutely awful. And there you go.
I think your dog agrees that the referee was very awful indeed. And Andrew, Steve Richards at Stitcho Steve says, lately the refs have seemed to be allowing stronger challenges, and then versus Fulham, every slight challenge is blown up for. Have they now decided to negate our physicality, or was Darren England just getting things wrong? I would disagree with Steve's tweet a little bit. I thought he blew up for every slight challenge that we made. I don't think he blew up for every slight challenge that Fulham made. I think when you look at the foul count and the free kick count, we got 5 free kicks for fouls. They got 14. And I think it was actually a very even game in terms of physicality. So Steve's question to you, Andrew, is was that a deliberate tactic by the referee to kind of stop our physicality, which I guess had been highlighted after the Arsenal game to some extent, or was he just shit, is generally his question.
Well, I certainly agree that the bar for a foul seemed to be different for the two teams. You would see a similar situation, but we wouldn't get the free kick, whereas Fulham had minutes earlier. I think it was perhaps more to the side of just poor refereeing, personally. I don't know if we are particularly physical. We're strong, we stand up for ourselves, but I don't think we've done much this season that would cause us to be getting a reputation from amongst referees. I just think it was the ref wasn't seeing incidents properly, although he might look at it and turn around and say, well, you're a fine one to talk because you've got your red and white tinted glasses on and you're not seeing those incidents right either. And they're speaking a lot of sense as he's going through his points, but something as he's talking and listing off the defeats, it's obvious and it's nice that all 3 defeats are because Sunderland were poor, not because Sunderland were outclassed. We went into this season thinking, is this going to be a scrap, and are we going to have to learn our lessons and take a couple of beatings along the way, or maybe even write off a couple of games because we're going to get thumped. We're now sat here a little bit unhappy that we've not been on form, a little bit unhappy that the referee's not really done his side of the job. None of us are saying after that Fulham game, oh, bloody hell, we're out of our depth here. So I am disappointed with how we played. I was extremely frustrated with the referee. It wasn't why we lost, but I was frustrated with him. But in the cold light of day, we don't need to be too downhearted just yet. There's still a lot going for us.
Yeah.
No,
Can I quickly point in on the referee? That's the worst I've seen so far this season.
Oh, by a mile.
Country mile.
Yeah,
by a country mile. And I thought Pawson couldn't have been worse against Arsenal. I thought he was dreadful, because I thought the Arsenal one was favouritism. And I will say that I thought it was big club bias when we were playing Arsenal, because it was exactly the same thing where we were putting the challenge in, we were getting pulled up from them, they were putting exactly the same challenge in, and we were getting absolutely nothing. On Saturday, it looked as if he was one of these referees who, you kind of get this like kind of home team kind of like bias, don't you? I've never seen us get that in about 7 years, to be honest. No. But he just everything. I think he got a lot wrong, like so much wrong for us, and it just looked as if like, what are you watching here? You know what I mean? And like I say, I've said it a couple of times now. That free kick for the goal is criminal. The decision he gives is absolutely ridiculous. And you're seeing just every Sunderland player just like, what the hell are you on about? Then maybe that was like kind of what led to the goal, because the anger and all that in the players, because we weren't getting anything and they've just switched off. It is what it is. You can't think for it. You can't legislate for it. But he was awful. And these are meant to be the elite, the elite referees in our country, and they're getting everything wrong. So it is what it is.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with you. Certainly, that was the worst refereeing display we've certainly seen this season, if not for a while. But we will go on to things that we can more easily influence and talk about, because we've got a few questions about sort of team selection and formation, which again is kind of natural, coming off the back of a defeat. Connor Bromley on X says, how do we address the lack of creativity, particularly away from home? And Elliot, at Elliot, lots of numbers, says, does the back five tell us that it should be reserved for top 6 teams since we picked up 4 points against Arsenal and Chelsea? I think we've got a chance of beating all of the other 14 teams with a 4-3-3 formation. And I've kind of put those two questions together because I think the answer is potentially in the question for the second one. But Andrew, lack of creativity, I think it is an issue. I think we've certainly on Saturday we struggled to create chances, and we have potentially struggled to create chances in a few of the games this season. But you balance that out with the fact that last season we played very much a clinical game in terms of we don't need to create a boatload of chances. We're going to just put the chances away that we do create. Regis Le Bris came with a reputation when you looked at his tactics and everything he'd done at Lorient and how they played. It was very much a case of they don't have tons of possession. They'll defend really well. They'll break, but they'll be clinical on the break. So I don't think we need to fall into a trap of going, we need to get loads of creative players on the pitch to create loads of chances, give us better chance of scoring, because you cause yourself other problems further back, don't you? But is this something that you'd be looking at, particularly with the Bournemouth game on Saturday, for example? Is this something you would look at to address the creativity issue? I think the away games that we've got after that, obviously Liverpool and Man City, they kind of stand alone in away games that we've got, because they're two of the best teams. I know Liverpool have the problems at present, which might present us with a good opportunity to get something at Anfield. But generally away from home, is there other stuff that you'd like to see him try? How are you kind of looking at it?
I'm in a similar frame of mind to yourself, Martin, in that I wouldn't want us to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's all very easy saying we'll put in more attacking threats, but you then risk problems at the other end of the pitch. And hey, we're in the top half of the Premier League now, so we're pretty much where we need to be in terms of balance of the side. Those 2 games in December you mentioned, this might be me just being over optimistic. They don't look as daunting to me as they used to.
As they could do, yeah.
Yeah, both Man City and Liverpool have shown themselves to be vulnerable this weekend. Now, I heard a stat that Liverpool have only lost 5 out of 80-odd home games. So, obviously, I'm not saying we're just going to walk into Anfield and win, but there's chances there. I wouldn't be too surprised about those 2 games. With regards to the original question, I hadn't been too concerned about our creativity. I've always thought in games we've looked threatening when we've needed to. Although, having said that, as I'm now looking at the Premier League table, we've got the fewest goals scored of all the teams in the top half. And there's a few teams in the bottom half of the table who've scored more than us. So maybe there is room to improve there and create a little bit more. I would just be wary. I do think, having said that, though, against Bournemouth, because we've now had a defeat, because Aldrete's on the bench, I dare say we'll make changes for the Bournemouth game. And by virtue of that, and by virtue of perhaps going to a back 4, we will find space for somebody a bit more attacking. Do we find somebody who can maybe just play behind the centre forward and see if that gives us a little bit more threat and a little more ability to hold the ball up front and apply some pressure?
Excellent. Right, we will take a very short break there. We'll be back after a couple of ads.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup Group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday Game Day, only on Prime.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Welcome back to Haway The Podcast, and you are joining us for the second part of our Q&A pod today, and we are starting to delve into team selection and all that sort of stuff ahead of the Bournemouth game on Saturday. Now, Andrew was just talking before the break about whether we change formation slightly ahead of Bournemouth and, maybe get somebody up front alongside potentially Isidore or potentially somebody else. But Lou at Lou_SAFC on X asks a question about the other end of the field. And he asks, now that all of the defenders are available, who's your selection and in what system?
Right. So if we're playing a 4,
are you playing a 4 first of all? That's
I'm
what
playing
he's
a 4 Saturday.
What system
yes.
you're going to play?
So I'm playing a
4
4 Saturday. I am. Yeah. I'm reluctantly going to say Trey Hume is probably going to be me one who goes out, because I don't think you can drop. You can't drop McGeely. So this is going to be McGeely right back. Aldrete in for Gertruda, Dan Ballard obviously, and Ronaldo. I think will be me through it. It'll be 4 across the back, and then I'm probably bringing in Talby on the left, and I'm going to put Enzo in the 10, and then just keep the rest the same.
Well, it's interesting because Roy of the Rokers, again, a username that I have a lot of time for, says, looking ahead to Bournemouth, does Regis revert to the usual 4-3-3? Ant said, yes, he does. Is that a return of Rig, or would it be better to move Lefay into the number 10 role and bring Talby into left wing? I think you've kind of laid your cards down there with that one.
I'll tell you what, he's made a good point regarding Rig, because Rig wasn't in the squad on Saturday, and he's come out and said it was technical, wasn't it? So obviously that might be in with the idea of that he's going to be either starting or going to be, playing some minutes on Saturday coming.
Potentially, or it could just be the fact that he probably presumed that he'd go the whole match with a back 5, back 3, and with a 2 in midfield, he probably doesn't think Rig has maybe the strength of the legs or whatever it is to be one of those 2, which it would be difficult for him. But Andrew, are you thinking along the same lines as Ant in terms of your back 4? What would be your first choice back 4?
Well, bless him, Ant there, as he's talking about the possibility of dropping Hume, looked in physical pain as he's having to say those words.
It's the only way.
It was difficult.
The other way out, because you can't drop McGeely, can you? You know what I mean? Because he's big class, and he's not going to drop that one.
No, it's not a criticism, because I feel exactly the same. I really find it tough. It's all very well me saying I think we'll drop to a back 4. How we actually do that and who drops out to accommodate that is tough. Hume, not much seems to have been made about this. Not much seems to have been made about the free kick that led to the goal, mind. Nobody seems to have mentioned that in the national press or anything, which annoys me. But Hume, right at the end, comes in with a tackle that is so late in the centre circle. I don't know if either of you picked up on that. That was
he got booked for it.
He did. He got booked for it, but there was a bit of frustration in him there. I think he perhaps knew that in the game he'd been off colour and not at his best. I'm dancing around the subject because I don't want to say it, but he probably is the most likely player to drop out if we go into a back 4, because McKaylee can do a bit more of an attacking job. One thing about McKaylee, and it feeds into how could we become a bit more threatening going forward. Was it me, or were we not using our long throw-ins on Saturday? There was a few times. We didn't
seem to do many of them, did we?
No, there was a few times when McKaylee looked as if he was winding up for one, and then he's gone and played it short. Now, maybe that's to catch Fulham out, maybe because it's had so much attention. Le Bris has thought, well, do we change that up because teams are going to start now expecting it, so we need to do something different? But I did feel a bit shocked about that, particularly in those wet conditions. If you get a difficult ball to deal with into the box and it's bouncing around, it might fall for you. So probably a back 4. Maybe Hume, unfortunately, having to drop out, and we become a bit more aggressive with our set pieces and start using them as a tool again. Couple of little things there that might change.
I'm really keen to see Alderete come back into the side. I think we've really missed both the balance that he gives in the central defence, his aggression and strength, but also his passing. I think his passing's been fantastic for us. And I think just in terms of him setting off little moves that we can break lines with, we've really missed him over the past. Well, he's been out for about a month now, hasn't he, since before the Chelsea game. We've had a few questions on similar topics. Lad of Light at Purple X Phantom 9 asks back to the 4-3-3. At Tenchi Lad on X asks, is it time for a change forward at the back with Lefay inside, Talby left and Broby to start? Now, I'll come on to that in a second because I think that's an interesting one to delve into. So we've had a few of those, so apologies if I haven't got to your question, but there was a lot about the formation and tactics quite naturally after that game on Saturday. But Cortez at Cortez_22_ says, what the heck's happened to Dingra and Mayenda? Why aren't they getting more minutes? They're not going to get any better and help the team if they aren't given chances. Now, Ant Dingra came on in the second, very, very late in the second half against Fulham and didn't really have a chance to affect things. And he seems to have fallen out of favour a little bit since that Man U game where he was substituted halfway through the first half. I don't think he was tracking back or giving Masuaku the support he kind of needed on that particular day. Mayenda, I might be mistaken, but I don't think he started the game since he missed that chance at Burnley very early on in the season. He's obviously had a few sub games, hasn't he? But I don't think he started.
He started Brentford, didn't he?
He started Brentford,
and Wilson came on and scored. I'm fairly sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was his last. That was definitely his last one when Wilson scored against Brentford.
But
he's barely been seen since.
He hasn't. We all saw in the second half of last season the potential that Mayenda's got, and I think we all would be agreed that he's got huge potential. Adingra, we haven't seen much of him to really comment directly, but he's came with a good reputation from Brighton. He's performed well in the Premier League for Brighton previously. Amad Diallo gave him a rave review on social media when he signed for us, so that is good enough for me. But do you think they should have been given more opportunities? Have you been surprised that we haven't seen more of those two so far?
Not so much like the Arsenal game. You can't really be bringing. Don't think you can bring both of them on at the same time. But I think Sadagon was set up for Mayenda. I really do think that. I think it was set up for just someone to break away with bit pace. As Andrew said before, the ball was zipping about. I think it was probably his game over Broby's, to be honest, to come off the bench. But again, it's hypothetical now. It's all been done. I expect, because we've got a lot of games now before the Cup of Nations starts, I expect Adingra will probably play a little bit more, because just to get his legs ready for the Cup of Nations, obviously be going away. So I expect him to maybe come in, possibly on Saturday. I mentioned before, they might just change it and put Talby there. He might come in and play on the left, and it'll be a game set up for him. So that could be one. Mayenda, I think Mayenda will probably be more on the wide right when the Cup of Nations is on. I think there'll be more towards that. I agree with. I think with Mayenda, because he was so good last year and stuff, and started this season off well. But I think Isidore has done a really good job up front. I really do. Since he's come in and he started, he's made himself. He's holding the ball up a lot better. He's made himself a nuisance, and he gives us that outlet where he's quite clever with what he does. Whereas I think Mayenda sometimes is just laser focused on getting into the box and scoring a goal. He doesn't see, what other options are. Doesn't make the right decisions most of the time. But with Wilson, I think that's just a little bit more advanced, because obviously, he's a bit more advanced of an age. But it'll come from Mayenda. I think, I'm all right with that. But I think Adingra will see a bit more of him.
Yeah, it would be nice to, because I think he's got potential, and Talby likewise. I think both of them have probably not played as much football as we could maybe have expected them to. But Ant makes an interesting point there, Andrew, and something that Tenchi Lad had mentioned in his tweet as well about Broby. Is it time for Broby to start? Now, I think Isidore's been fantastic this season. I think he's done all of the dirty work really well. He's kind of really stepped up that bit of his game. He's throwing himself into headers. He's closing the ball down. He's trying to hold the ball up. It was interesting on Saturday in the Fulham game because, in the commentary, the stream I had over here, the commentator made the point that, Isidore hadn't come come deep at all to hold the ball up. He hadn't come deep to receive the ball with his back to goal very much. He'd been on the last man looking for the ball over the top. And it was Sam Parkin, the former, who played for Swindon and Wickham and whoever else he used to play for.
Didn't he play for?
I remember we were linked with him at some point. He almost plays for us. But he was saying it's obviously very tactical because Wilson's just going that way all the time rather than coming deep. You mentioned earlier about, is it time that we actually had somebody up front who could hold the ball up a little bit more? So my question to you, kind of jumping off those ones, is it Broby time? Yes or no, Andrew?
Yes. I thought it was going to be Broby time on Saturday, to be honest. I thought if there was going to be a change, it was going to be him coming up front. Again, I was cautious about that because Isidore doesn't deserve to be dropped. And I think we all need to just accept the fact that if a player does come out of the team, they're not being dropped in the old sense. Usually, if you were dropped, it was because you'd been shocking for the last few weeks. Whereas now it's because it's just needed for the team and for the particular situation.
No, sorry, it's interesting because when we were talking about that earlier in terms of keeping the same formation, the point was raised that, is it hard to drop somebody because they've played well in the last few weeks and you might put somebody's nose out of joint if you're taking out the team after playing well. And it is like these days it is a squad game, isn't it? And players have to, and I think they are very kind of happy. Not happy is probably the wrong way, but accepting of coming in and out the team should they need to, given the tactics for a certain day.
Yes, you're right. The understanding around it being a squad game now seems to be a lot better understood by players. But yes, the original question's a fair one, like most of them have been in this episode, to be honest. Broby has had time to settle in now. He's shown he can do something a little bit different. And by holding the ball up, that gives the defence and the midfield a bit of a chance to set themselves again. Isidore's a very different type of striker and he's done very well. But yeah, that might be how you get even more out of Isidore. If you've got somebody doing the legwork and doing the physical side of things and then just popping the ball off to him, or somebody holding it up, turning and pinging it over for him to run onto, that in theory sounds pretty decent.
So you're saying 4-4-2?
It's too early to say. I hate it when people want definitive answers because there's so many moving parts. But I could see the benefit of 4 at the back. I could see the benefit of Broby coming in and playing on his own or playing with people around him. There, I think that's neutral enough for the time being. No more questions.
We will move on and we'll leave that one there for the time being. And there's a couple of questions about the fan reaction on social media and in general, I guess, to defeats. And I think we've been really lucky this season to a large extent, haven't we? The general mood has been fantastic around the club, around the fan base. Rightfully so, because the performance has been so good. We've seen a fantastic team take the field, be moulded by Le Bris. We've scored some great results, scored some good goals. And that, again, we've talked about the Burnley game and the Man U game. Saturday was a bad game. I think it was our poorest performance of the season. Is how I described it. Michael Conroy on X at MickConUK says, it was a bad day at the office. Some tactical choices might be misguided, but we're sat on Twitter without a team of data analysts behind us. But the point he makes, I think it's a really interesting one to talk about. He says, but now we have a tough run and with a certain match around the corner. How do we make sure that we keep the levels up in the terraces at the Stadium of Light? And Joe Brown at Joe Brown 3 says, how do you handle the fan base dropping their heads if the Christmas period doesn't go well? The two are kind of linked, but I think the important thing is it's having that, and I know it's really hard as football supporters, isn't it, to have that perspective in that context of what's gone on so far this season, what's gone on in the past 12 months, where we were this time last year. And I know we all like to live in the moment and we take it game by game, and we are rightfully seeing us as a good Premier League side now, and we should kind of judge ourselves on that basis rather than the side that we were 12 months ago or 2 years ago. But it's important, isn't that, collectively we kind of keep our mood positive and behind the team all the way through. Because look, we are going to go through bad spells of results this season. I don't care how good we get the team this season. We are going to go through spells where performances aren't great, results aren't great, and we're going to have to ride that out, because the difference the crowd can make to the team, especially at the Stadium of Light, is astronomical. We've seen it all season so far, haven't we? Where the team start in the front foot, the crowd gets behind them, and it's that snowball effect, and the opposition really find it troublesome to stop. So how do we, collectively, I don't think this is just a fan thing. I think this is a club, a player, team thing as well. How collectively do we make sure that over the next few weeks, and we keep that momentum and keep that positivity going?
Well, the easiest thing to do, Martin, is to win. You're right. This is the hardest part of the season now. We saw that when the fixtures came out in August. We looked at the December and we went, that is going to be difficult, and it still is. You know what I mean? Even though we're in a really, really good position now, we're from where expectancies have probably changed since the start of the season. I certainly think, and I think that probably is amongst the fan base as well, where you are like, oh, we will take 17th. Give us 17th now, and I'm happy and all that. Now it's kind of, we're in where I don't know where we're at, 8th or 9th or whatever now, because obviously Villa won yesterday. So, but looking at it, the table is a little bit, it's quite close together, isn't it? But you go out against Bournemouth on Saturday, and I'm sure everyone's going to be massively up for it, hugely up for it. 7th. Thank you, Andrew. Hugely up for it. It's a good game against a good team of players. Who are another team who are struggling a little bit at the minute. Their form's gone a little bit awry. So you're looking at it thinking that it could be a good 3 points. And if we get that 3 points ahead of, Liverpool, Man City, which is going to be difficult, and then it's a big one. And I think it's just, I think really we've just got to be a little bit more open-minded of bad results are going to happen this season. Bad performances are going to happen this season. It's how we react, and how we've reacted to our 2 defeats have been very good. We obviously, after Burnley, we won straight away. After Manchester United, we went and got a really good result at home, and we went and beat Chelsea as well. So I think under the Bris, it's the fact that yes, the defeat's done, but the team will, and you saw with what Granit Xhaka said after Everton when we got a really good result, but he was like, oh, we lost after the first 20 minutes. His standards on the pitch will be, 100% of getting that victory against Bournemouth. And I think as fans as well, we've just got to think of, don't go back to what it was in the Championship, where we weren't winning after 20 minutes, when people were getting angry and upset, this, that, and the other. Just ride it out, because you were right there. The Arsenal game, the fans got us that goal at the end, because the fans just stuck behind the team, kept the team going forward. And we got that goal, and the fans have been excellent this season, absolutely brilliant. Let's keep it up. Let's keep that up, because that will feed off onto the players. So for me, Martin, it's literally just keep going, keep doing as you was. Get up for it. If you can't get up for the Premier League, don't come, because this is the best. It's good. This is the best it is. You know what I mean? The best we are at the minute. You know what I mean? So, the club's doing something very, very special at the minute, and just get behind them. Get behind them. Yes, if people are going to make slack passes, don't get straight on the backs. You know what I mean? Which hasn't happened this season. But let's just remember, it's still a very, very difficult league, and we're doing really, really well for me.
And Andrew, the thing, or one of the things I think the club's done particularly well this season, and this is me saying by all accounts through living vicariously through the likes of you two and other people, but everything that you see and you hear and you read, and talking to my mum and dad who go to every game, the club have made it an occasion. They've made it feel a big deal. And I think, looking at it, you've got all of these different components that come into succeeding on the field at home on Saturday. We've talked about the role the fans have to play, but the club has that bit to do as well. And then the team, how the team come out on the front foot and harnessing everything together. So how do you see the club and the team's bit of that ahead of these next few fixtures?
Well, I think the team have been hitting the levels already, and certainly in terms of graft, they are always working their socks off. So that will always get them an element of support. We've known all season that the crowd can make a difference. And so far, the crowd has made that difference. We've been really positive as a collective. Yes, there's frustration in the immediate aftermath of a game, but look at the questions we've gone through there, Martin. Nobody's digging anybody out or saying so-and-so's not fit to wear the shirt. It's all coming from a more positive view and
it's
angle.
coming from a proactive place, isn't it? All the questions are proactive. Okay, can we do this? Can we do not get rid of the manager? Get rid of this. This player's shite. Get rid of him. It's all, maybe you should try this. How about this? It's all positive, isn't it?
It is, and it's all from this understanding that we are in a tough league and we're giving it a really good shot. People don't want to see us lose this opportunity that we've built up for ourselves, but nobody is panicking or starting to throw out insults and name calling. So the team just need to keep working. They'll have a good week on the training ground. It was a very good point Chris made on one of the pods about maybe the international break did just disrupt the continuity amongst the group. So a week on the training ground, we'll work hard against Bournemouth. The club have made match days and a big event this season. They've brought back that excitement and that energy around games. I don't think they need to do anything specific in the build up to this match because it's all the little things that have gone on beforehand, all the ground improvements, all the different messaging, the improvement in tickets and retail, all those side of things. They've put the groundwork in now and we're going to start seeing the benefit. Against Bournemouth, I don't know, there's meant to be the scoreboard, the new scoreboard's going to be in action. That might prompt a little bit of additional...
lettering above the on the east stand, haven't we? The Sunderland AFC.
Fair point. So yeah, there might be a little bit of extra buzz around those continuing changes. But as Ant said, and as you've said, we've bounced back from defeat so far really well. So nobody's going to be going into that game dreading it. I saw a graphic on the BBC over the weekend. I can't remember the exact title, but it was basically saying Sunderland's iffy away form. And it listed 3 defeats, 2 wins and a draw. And I'm looking at that and thinking, flipping heck, 2 wins and a draw so far is actually, relatively speaking, decent going for us. And fans who actually have supported Sunderland recognise that. There's no need for us to start making a drama out of things. We've lost 3 games. At no point have we been outclassed or ripped apart. Fans appreciate that we're doing brilliantly well. I think Saturday's going to be bouncing as ever. And again, as a group, we're aware where the club are at. We can see what long-term we're trying to do. I can't see many people losing faith with that anytime soon.
That's right. We've got time for one very quick question. This is for you, and RYXCL on X says, who do you think we need, do you think we need more depth in midfield and attacking positions? And if so, who would you bring in during the January transfer window?
Thank you very much for that question. Did you mean in midfield? I think you'll sign midfielder anyway. And I think, you're looking at the fact he was getting asked in the press conference about Guendouzi. I think someone knows. I think someone knows something. And I'll give you a very short answer on that. I think he might be a Sunderland player in January.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting in talking to Tom White on Sunday because he talked about that one, and he said after that he's kind of thinking that's going to happen rather than that's probably not going to happen. He said that we are in for a big name striker, the right sort of big name striker, and if this person becomes available, we'll go from in January. Chances are it'll be the summer. And right winger, I think those are the 3 positions that you'd kind of look at. I thought Traore did really well on Saturday. Actually, I thought it was his best game.
I actually really like Traore. I think he's done really, really well the last few games.
But you can tell, I think, by 2 things. One, the fact that Le Bris keeps picking him and choosing him in the team. He obviously wants a player like that on the right-hand side. But the fact we only gave him a 1-year contract suggests that that's a short-term fix that we'll look to fill either in January or in the summer. So I think those would be the two positions.
There's been a rumour that they're going back in for that Llorente, isn't there, who failed the medical? Apparently that's a rumour, and he's a wide player, isn't he? So,
there could be some sort of deal to be done in terms of the transfer fee or instalments based on a certain number of games that maybe wasn't taken into account with the initial fee or whatever. So I think I think if the right players become available in January, the club have shown that they've been pretty ruthless in terms of if they see an opportunity rather to upgrade a position, they'll go and get somebody in and bring them in, and it doesn't really matter what fallout there is from it because we want to continuously improve. And I think you could, I think that doesn't just apply to midfield or wingers; it applies to every single position in the team, doesn't it? If they get a chance to bring somebody else in who's better, they're probably going to take it. So I think it's going to be an interesting January one. But fortunately, it's not a case of being in a position where we need to sign a couple of players to try to, hopefully by the end of January, we're still saying the same thing. But at present, we're looking at the January transfer window going, where can we strengthen to progress even further rather than, we need to get Tahal El Kakuri in to try to stabilise the defence and give us a chance of staying up. So, it's all positive. I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you, Ant.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
And thank you to Mike Bassett. Sorry, Andrew Smith.
At no point did I say we have to go 4-4-2.
I'm going to clip that bit out now. You say we have. You literally just said we have to go 4-4-2. And thank you to everybody for listening. Sorry if we didn't get your question. As I said at the top of the show, we had loads to get stuck into. But don't forget, if you do have a question you'd like us to answer next week, send us an email at Haway The Podcast, SAFC@gmail.com, or watch out on X for our posts asking for your questions. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Haway The Podcast. But until then, goodbye from us.
Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Find the biggest voices in sports on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like me, Adam Collins from the award-winning Final Word Cricket Podcast, covering the Ashes in depth. Described by Wisden, the game's Bible, as the gold standard of cricket podcasts, we'll have reviews of each day's play from the ground, covering every hit, miss and players inexplicably wandering out of their crease. Search Final Word Cricket and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.